Hey guys, Chris here. Today we have a story from one of our viewers who was 9 years old when he and his sister were living in Tennessee, and they went for this big old hike in the Smoky Mountains, and there they had a crazy encounter with something. I think you guys know what this is. And we got a new truck. We're gonna take a look at that as well. All right, let's go. All right, you guys, I'm in the Nevada desert this evening. We got our story tonight. I got my beer. We're also gonna have a Reuben sandwich. I'm gonna be cooking on the tailgate of this truck here, 2024 Ford Maverick hybrid. Gets really great gas mileage, about 38, 39, 40 if I'm lucky. So pretty cool. And it is an XLT, which is the middle model. There's XL, XLT, and the Lariat. I got the XLT. Really happy with it. Here's a quick peek at the motor. A lot of stuff going on here, and yet everything's labeled nice and easy. There's oil, fluids, power steering, I believe, and the battery is actually in the main compartment in the back seat. Interesting. So that is where the hybrid looks like in a Ford Maverick. So in the back I have a tonneau cover, covers everything. It actually locks right here so nobody can get in here except for me. And then this just goes like this. And this flips out like that, locks in. There's my gear. Great for camping. Also has a hitch on the back. Pull my pop-up camper. Very comfortable on the inside. Backup camera. Lots of bells and whistles, fun stuff like that. So, okay guys, I am sitting in the box of the truck here. It gets me off the ground, and tonight's beer is called King Kong Brewing Company River and Rage Hazy India Pale Ale. Say that 5 times fast. Check that out. There's a King Kong. Of all things, a raging ape, gorilla, Bigfoot. And that is out of Sacramento, California. It says community, culture, creativity, and beer. So I'm going to try that out. That is 6.8 alcohol by volume. Oh, look at that. It's nice and hazy looking. It's kind of pale ale, but a little more opaque. Oh, I can smell the aroma of it. Yeah, that is a hazy pale ale. That's really pretty good. It doesn't have a fruity taste. It's just more of the hazy taste to it. And yeah, real tasty. Real beer-like finish to it, but got kind of a hazy, kind of fruity taste to it. So, all right, cheers. Okay, so this is a really beautiful evening. No wind, and it's not super cold, at least yet. The temp's going to drop a little bit tonight, but really looking forward to getting out camping, having the new truck to make life easier. Pull my camper, put all my gear in the back. Really looking forward to that. So we're going to be doing a lot of camping this year. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited. So our story takes place in 1984. This comes to us from one of our viewers. His name is Mike. And at this time, he was 9 years old. He had moved from Ohio to Tennessee with his family. And they also had extended family in the area. La Follette, Caryville, Lake City, these small communities at the base of the gorgeous Smoky Mountains. Not too far from the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I'd love to go visit this park sometime. They grew up in the woods. They grew up kind of free, doing whatever they wanted. As long as they checked in with mom, let her know they're going to be right around dark. That was always the cutoff. I remember when I was a kid too, it was always just make sure you're home before dark. And you get on your bikes and we'd go off into the woods and be gone for the day. It's great stuff. It's a little different than it is now. It was 1984 when Mike and his sister Jaylene decided to go for a hike in the Smokies. They wanted to go to this place called Star Rock. It was kind of famous. It was this big, huge rock near the top of this mountain that you could climb up into the ridge and follow the game trail down to and then drop down to it. And then you had to climb up like 20 feet, and it was this big flat surface, and then the other side it dropped off this sheer cliff. And he said kids would go up there and camp up there, and it was huge, this huge rock, 4 or 5 miles away from home. Quite a big trip for a 9-year-old and his younger sister. His sister's name was actually Gaylene, Gaylene, and his mom knew that they were raised on the farm, outdoors, fishing, hunting, and they could be trusted to go out and do a 4 or 5 mile hike and be just fine. They knew the area really well, and they were really excited to go out and do this hike. And the mom said, just make sure you're home before dark, or darkish, right after dark. She gave them her watch, make sure that they would be on time, and they proceeded to get their gear together. They got a canteen, some food. Mike got his machete. He felt like the big boy because he had the machete. He could cut through brush with that thing, and he was ready to go. And this was his first kind of solo hike without his older brothers going with him, and he was going to lead his younger sister. And so he was excited about that, and he knew the route, at least knew it enough. At least he thought he knew the route. And so they proceeded to go up this mountain and head towards this Star Rock. And they were going up the trail, working their way up, and they knew it was going to get steep, and then they were going to have to go up to the game trail, work their way along the ridge, and drop down. And they came to a Y in the road. And he knew this Star Rock was somewhere off to the left, so it just made sense to go to the left. So they both go to the left, and they're hiking through the forest, following this trail, and after about an hour and a half, they ran into a dead end. The trail just stopped, and it was just a thicket and brush and this steep incline heading up the mountain. And so Mike turns to his sister and he says, we have a dead end here. I think I know how to get us up and over and get us up there once we get up into the high country. I know what I'm doing. Or would you like to go back down the mountain? It's going to be about, it was an hour and a half to get up here. It'll be a little bit less. And she said, no, I'm willing to go with you. We'll go up. So they went up, and it was very steep, 45-degree angle. They were going and climbing and having to reach up and grab saplings and pull themselves up. And it was very thick, so they kept expecting to see some kind of a great view looking off into the valley down below, and they didn't see it. They were just in this thick brush. And about every 10, 15 minutes, they would stop, take a break, because they were getting exhausted. And Mike was just waiting to see some blue sky and it's kind of a break in the forest. And then he knew it was going to start curving over, and he could get on their way up to the game trail and work their way to the Star Rock. This was obviously way off the beaten path. In fact, there was no path. It was just this thick brush, and they're going straight up, and the heat is sweltering. It's midsummer, and he's trying to reassure his sister that they're going to be okay, and we're getting there. We're almost there. We just got to keep going. And then he saw it. It was 20 to 25 yards straight above them, sitting on a ledge with a cliff behind it and some exposed rock around it. And he could see it through the brush. He looked over at his sister to see if she saw it. Her mouth was already wide open. And she turned to him and she said, Bigfoot. He couldn't accept that. Mike couldn't accept that in his mind. He'd never seen a Bigfoot before. And so his brain was trying to reason with it, like, maybe she's wrong. Maybe it's a hiker who's enjoying the view. They looked over their shoulder and there was no view. It was just thick Tennessee woods. And as they're looking at this thing in stunned silence, it was sitting there with its right arm between its leg, looking to the left and looking to the right, kind of moving its neck around. Then it would reach over and grab a branch, pull it in front of it, and then pull some leaves off of it and start eating them. His brain was trying to calculate what he was really actually seeing. He was really having a hard time with it. And he was watching this thing for just a few minutes. And it turns its head to the side. And that's when his blood ran cold. That's what he said. Because he could clearly see a pronounced brow ridge on the head of this thing, which looked like a silverback gorilla or an ape or a monkey. And it just had to be a Bigfoot. He was just frozen with fear because now he knew this was not just some person or he's a bear. He mistook it for something else. He now knew what he was actually looking at. He actually did some artwork of this, and it showed this brow ridge and this beautiful reddish color that he said that it had hair, not fur, but hair. He seemed to lose all strength in that moment. And his mouth became dry. And his sister said, "Run, we should run." And he didn't know what to do. He was just frozen with fear. And he realized how close they were because every time this thing would reach over and grab the branch, he could hear the bush snap back. They were that close. He said he remembers saying to himself he didn't want to run and he didn't want to stay. He just wanted to blink his eyes and be back at home. I don't blame him. He said it got even more horrifying. This thing was sitting there, and then occasionally it would crane its neck, kind of shrug its shoulders, and then stand up and kind of look around. And then it would start swaying back and forth and look straight down the mountain where they were, as if it was trying to sense them or even smell them. And at that moment, as far as he could tell, it didn't know they were there yet. And he remembered he was taught how to hunt, and he knew one of the things that would actually give you away was having your eyes see the predator. So he closed his eyes, put his head down when it was looking down the mountain in their direction, because he didn't want to have his eyes give him away like a rabbit or a deer would. At this moment, it didn't know they were there, and he didn't want it to. But after 15 minutes of watching this thing, just sitting up there on this ledge, he knew they needed to make a move. So he slowly turned his head to his sister, and he said, "On 3, let's run." And she nodded. And then he said, 1, 2, 3. And they both turned and started running down the mountain. And the moment they got into the brush, this thing let out this, he called it this god-awful cry. It went, "Ah!" really loud. And they kept running. Mike said, "I know what we saw, and there is nothing on the face of the earth that can make this sound." He said the sheer volume, lung capacity, and deep bass of this thing went right through them. This thing rattled his brain so badly that he did a front flip heading down the mountain. He was so full of confusion and terror that his brain couldn't even keep up with his feet. The sound of this thing echoed and reverberated through the valley below. They were terrified and running for their lives. I got the lanterns going now. He said if he had to describe this sound, he said it sounded like a cross between a lion, a gorilla, a T-Rex, and more creepily, a human, all mixed together in this horrific sound that went through them. They're moving down the mountain as fast as they can go, tripping, sliding, going through the brush. He said he could see his sister, a sapling would come up between her arms and hit her in the face, knock her down. She would get up and continue running. He was running, grabbing branches as he was going down this steep slope to slow him down. And they would get to a 15, 20-foot cliff, and because their momentum was such, they would just have to get to the edge and just jump, hit the bottom, roll, and continue on. Just crazy. They're going through the brush like this, and he sees his sister's head, this blonde head, moving like a gazelle down through the brush in front of him. And he can't keep up with her. And he's starting to feel like he's going to be left behind. And he's yelling for her, and he's 9 years old, and she's younger than he is. And he said he wanted to, like, man up or something. And I'm like, dude, you're 9 years old. But he felt like he was going to be left behind, and he was afraid, and he was yelling to his sister. He said, please wait for me. Wait, I don't want to be left behind here. Pray for me. Let's stay together. They continued down to the bottom, and he maintained with her. They get to the bottom, they stopped, and there was thick briars and brush in front of them. And they knew they didn't have time to navigate around this, because he was afraid this thing was going to come down the side and cut him off. And so he said, we just went right through this thicket, and it just shredded us. We were bleeding, it ripped our clothes. We're going through this thing. It was just difficult, but we just went straight through it without regard for our bodies, because we were so filled with fear and just knew we had to leave, fight or flight, and they were in flight. They finally get to the other side of this thicket, these briars, and they found this cabin. And there was an old guy sitting on the porch of this cabin. He was whittling. And they came out right in front of this cabin, and his sister kind of mumbled, help, Bigfoot, help. They were in shock. And this guy, I don't know what his deal was, but he didn't do anything. And I guess he just sat there and looked at them. Maybe he had dementia or something. I don't know. And so they said, we got to go. We got to go. And so they went around the cabin, went through the forest. They found the railroad tracks, followed it back home, finally got home. They finally made it home and stumbled through the front door. And as soon as they felt that they were safe, Mike started crying. He just felt the emotion and the fear and everything just come up. And he's just started weeping. His sister was throwing up. The family came in, and they said they looked as white as ghosts. Mike told them the story as best he could in that state. He said, here's what we saw, this is what we did, this is what we heard, here's how we came down the mountain, this is why we're all, are bleeding and our clothes is ripped up, and this is why we're so distressed. The brothers wanted to get a look at this or try to figure out what they had seen, and so they grabbed a couple of guns, and they asked Mike, come and show us where this happened. And he said, no, I am not going back out there. So he went to the front door, and he pointed to the base of the mountain, and he said, up from there, quite a ways, that's where it happened. So they went out looking for this thing to see what happened, what they were talking about. They came back sometime later, and Mike said, first words were they were laughing at them, and they said, it looked like a herd of elephants went through the thicket back there. And in fact, they found his sister's shoe. They did not find the watch. The brothers also said they went up and they found this ledge where this thing had been sitting on, and they found some quasi tracks right in the area, but they weren't definitive. They were just some movement in the dirt. They were not clear tracks, but they saw where these branches were, and they could see the leaves were off of them, and there was leaves on the ground. Mike said it was 7 more years before he would go back into the woods again. 7 years. He had dreams and nightmares about this after it happened. And it still affects him somewhat to today. And it's something he's very clear in his memory. He talks about this a lot, about what happened, and his story doesn't change and doesn't have... He's got a few new stories, actually. You were going to hear those in the interview. But It was really good talking with Mike and about his story. I'll play that interview after I cook the Reuben sandwich. So let's get some cooking going here. Okay, so here's the ingredients I got for the Reuben here. And what the trick is you got to assemble it before you cook it. So we're going to put the butter on, the roast beef, sauerkraut, the Swiss cheese, and then put butter on the other side. And then we're going to cook it from there. It's pretty simple. All right, we've got the rye bread. Got the roast beef right here. Okay, we start with the rye bread. And we are going to butter that. You forget the butter, you might as well forget the Reuben. We are on the tailgate right now. And I'm going to do more tailgate cooking. Not tailgating, but tailgate cooking. So it's kind of fun. Ooh. The trick is to kind of put it on there nice and thick. But undo it. Let's put it on, kind of wad it in there. There we go. Then we're going to go with the sauerkraut. And I do not have a fork because I'm making sandwiches. I was like, why do I need a fork for sandwiches? So that's how we're going to get that done. Load that on there. Oh, yeah. That actually works pretty good. And then we're going to go with some Swiss cheese. Tillamook Swiss cheese. And I'm just going to throw a nice big piece on there. I'm not even going to cut it up. Just one right there in the middle. And then we're going to top this off with some Thousand Island. That's like the secret sauce. Oh, look at that. There we go. Looking good, coming together. The old-fashioned skillet. It is heavy duty, and it's very heavy, emphasis on heavy, compared to my backpacking skillet. But for car camping, truck bumper camping, that works just fine. Boy, it really is a beautiful night. The temp has really dropped considerably, though. And it's cooling down. So I'm glad we got the story in before it got too cold. The camera was acting weird. Right, we're just about done. That's about it. Look at that. All right, we're going to kill the heat. Put it right there. There you go. It does nice having the handle there to do this like that. But that is our Reuben sandwich for tonight. All right, there we go. All right. This is something to keep me warm here, at least for a moment. Wow. We have a full moon coming up over my left shoulder here. Very nice. That is super tasty. Okay, guys, you can listen to that interview now with Mike. It's really pretty good. He's got a couple of extra stories and quite an adventure they had. So I'm going to head out. I got to get back to town. We'll see you in the next one. As always, keep hiking.
In my letter, but my brother actually had got run out a couple years before mine in Ohio. He got run out of the woods by a Bigfoot.
Really? Was this a nighttime experience?
Yes, he was. We grew up out in the country, Ashtabula County. People don't realize, but the locals do. But there's decades and decades of Squatch encounters and stuff, and it's all farm country, and lots of acres of woods and things. But he was at his girlfriend's or friends and whatnot about 5 miles away, and late one night, and her dad was like, "Yeah, you ain't staying here. I don't know where you're staying, but you're not staying the night." So he proceeded. He brought a few shotgun shells. Proceeded to head back home, and he thought, well, instead of walking like all the way down this lonely little gravel road, middle of nowhere, he could take a 90-degree angle. He thought he was going to be smart and cut through diagonally through the woods, cut off a couple miles, So he started walking through the woods, and he said he started hearing something like pacing him. And he, thought, well, maybe it's in my head. And then he would take 3 or 4 quick steps and stop, and the thing would take like one more, and he'd catch it. He's like, no, and he confirmed, I know something was trying to creep up, So he took off running at that point. He said it sounded like trees, like a bulldozer coming through the woods, knocking stuff down. And he said I was so scared I wasn't thinking straight because he had borrowed like a handful of shotgun shells from her or her brother or something. And he goes, I was trying to think of a way I could set these shells off, like put them in the crook of a tree and hit them with something. But he's like, I was even thinking about racking them on my tooth on a primer, try to get,
Yeah.
And he ran out in a plowed field, turned around, 2 in the morning, pretty bright moon. And he said he saw this monster, 9 foot plus, all gray, hairy, bipedal creature standing right at the edge of the woods. It wouldn't come out in the plowed field. And he proceeded to run back home. So I remember our viewpoint was, it's my big brother. He came back about 2 in the morning watching late shows. You only had 3 channels back then.
Yeah.
Like them horror shows, on the weekend. He come back in shock, white, shaking, and laid on the floor because we used to all lay on the floor and watch TV at late Friday nights, and laid on the floor and shaking. It took him about a half hour, maybe an hour, to finally tell us what happened. So we went back. He never went back. The next morning, me and my other brothers went back, and we grew up hunting and trapping and stuff. So we cut his track, and we saw where his tracks came out of the woods, turned around in the fresh plowed field, and then he was booking it. His stride doubled, But he definitely saw something. He was traumatized. But
did you see any other tracks from the?
We at that time we weren't going in the woods,
Yeah.
We didn't want to get too close, honestly.
Yeah.
And I had my encounter and got married later, moved back up here, and 5 or 6 years ago, again out in that same area, within a couple miles of that area, there's a New Line wildlife management area. And me and a buddy were going frog gigging about 2 in the morning. And him and his son were on the far side of the bay. And what I love about the lake is, I love it and hate it, because it's so thick that it's impossible to walk around the lake or have access to the lake. You have to get on either end and just kayak in. So that's a blessing and a curse. So we're trying to frog gig, hear all these big frogs. Yeah. They take off on the other side of the cove, and I'm like, I'm going for it. So I got a frog gig. I'm crawling through rabbit holes and thickets, and looks like mangrove, down in Florida, the thick mangrove roots.
Oh, okay.
I'm ducking under and crawling for, it seemed like a mile, but probably it was like 150 yards on my belly and crawling, I thought it was going to open up, but it never did. A little bit. I hear all the bullfrogs croaking, and I'm like, man, I was getting aggravated because I'm still 10 feet from the water. It's just thick, little 1-inch, saplings and bent over and briars, rabbit holes going through there.
Yeah.
And there's a big wall of blueberries bush, and I start mowing down, like, sweet, they're in prime season. And my buddy starts flashing his light across the way over there, and I hear, and I couldn't hear what he was saying. So I thought, well, I might as well come back because I can't get to the water anyway. I get on my hands and knees, I'm crawling back out, and there's a little tributary. And, man, to this day, it really bums me out because I as an adult, I always carried flash repairs in my work truck just in case, ever comes across some tracks. Well, I rode with him, so I didn't have that. But on my hands and knees, and I'm trying to get back out to go see what he wanted. And my nose is, on your hands and knees. I'm looking down right in front of me with my little headlamp, and there's a pristine tracks. I mean, because it was in about a 6-inch wide little water, like spring tributary going into the lake. And it was like sand and kind of, on each side of it. So it was like the absolute best, probably possible scenario for a footprint track. And there was one, I wear a size 14 boot. It was bigger, it wasn't huge, like 18-inch or 20-inch, but it was bigger than the exterior of my boot, about an inch. So it's probably pushing 16 inches. And there was a little baby one. There was a small one, about 6 inches with it. And as soon as I seen that, it's like I immediately, my hackles on my neck were raised up because I'm like, I knew there was a mama and a baby, and they were chowing on blueberries until I scared them off or whatever. So I'm like trying to hustle back double time through this thicket, and I never felt so vulnerable in my life because I'm on my hands and knees, and all I have is a frog gig, Well, I make it back out there, and my buddy goes, "Oh my gosh, dude," he goes, "I was trying to tell you," he goes, "something huge jumped in the water, like splashed, and was coming right at them." And then he was actually so scared of it, he hollered for his 17-year-old son. He said, "Run to the car and lock the car." I said it sounded like it was circling them. But we put two and two together. Thank God I scared them out. They didn't know they were on the other side.
Yeah.
And, they could have torn me up, but I didn't hear the splashing because I was too busy grumbling and, griping to get there. But, I scared them over to his side.
Oh, wow.
But they were pristine tracks, gorgeous.
Oh, wow. Were they wide?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
That's what I've just found. They can be really wide.
They look perfect toes, everything.
Human-like, but look at how wide it is, and it's
exactly.
Very
and I'm like,
impression based on the soil.
And when you factor in location too, I'm like, no one in their right mind would be here. I'm the only one that would be, and let alone walking around barefoot and have a kid with them barefoot.
Yeah,
impenetrable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of footprints, you said in your story that your brother saw some tracks after you went back home, and you told everyone what happened. Was that your tracks, or was that possibly the Bigfoot tracks?
Well, I took them to the base, where we came out behind this, like a little cabin, and a guy was sitting on his back deck whittling or something. And we were head to toe, like blood, shredded, ripped, going off the 30-foot drop-offs and then hitting the ground and keep on rolling and running. And But so they clearly saw, where we just ran through walls of thickets, And I said, "There's the base where we came in." I wouldn't go back up for 7 years in the woods.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
But they followed it up, and then when they came back, they found my sister's shoe. And I just was joking, laughing about this past month with my sister. And I said, because I was asking her side, because I never really heard her side as an adult, what she might have seen something different. But I just asked her about a week or two ago. But she said they never did recover Mom's watch. But they went up.
Yeah.
And, how, I've heard people, I've never been west of the Mississippi, been all over the eastern, from Florida to Ohio and, Carolinas. Louisiana, but I've never been in the Rockies, but I've heard people from that area say, the Rockies are huge, but they said the Appalachian Mountains ain't nothing to play with. They're straight up and down. They're short and steep, but I mean, to be that steep where you literally fall on your butt and you're still flying down the mountain on your butt, and then you go off them rock ledges, and you just try to wave your arms, try to keep upright and hit the ground.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a brutal trip down the mountain, going that fast, going through all that brush. And you said at one point you jumped off 15, possibly 18-foot drop-offs on some cliffs.
Oh yeah, I mean they might have been higher than that. You couldn't.
Wow. It
wasn't like we willingly jumped off. We're sliding down so fast. I was on my butt and she fell down a couple of times like Superman going head. But it's so steep in the leaf litter. You're 45-degree angle or something. You're flying down, and all of a sudden, you go off a ledge. You don't even see it until you're 15, 20 foot in the air, and you just hit, on the angle down below and keep running, get up and run or roll or slide.
Wow.
But they went up, and where we saw the Bigfoot at, it was 20 yards maybe or so it's a picture about maybe like a 45-degree angle above us. You know, like the Appalachian, like the Smoky Mountains, there's a lot of, you know, springs and the old rocks and stuff like that. They just kind of, you'd be going up a deciduous forest, and then there's like just cool house-sized boulders and rock ledges and caves. It was kind of like that, spread out through intermittently. But when they come back, they said, laughing at how, you know, we just tore through these walls of thickets they said there's a clear trail around there. And I'm like, we're not looking for no trail. You're going down like as fast as you can get down the mountain. But they said they saw like the bush where he was breaking the leaves off, but where he was squatting, it was like kind of like the top of a boulder that would just kind of, you know, they stick out, just kind of face them out. So it was kind of a little flat ledge, kind of a secondary game trail thing. So they said they seen some little bit of kind of partial prints, but it was like not a very good substrate to, you know, get any tracks.
But the brush at least verified what you guys had stated, that you know, what happened. You were coming flying down the mountain after what you know, just didn't make it up. So that brings us to the sound that it made. You did a pretty good job explaining that. You mentioned it was like a lion, a gorilla, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and very creepily a human. And when you think about those things, like a lion, the bass and all that is so loud, and you can feel it going through you. So could you describe a little bit more detail, anything about that, like it went through you and how that felt?
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely, like I've heard people, you know, mock me. I've always grew up, I didn't care what no one think. I know what I saw, you know. And when you hear that sound, you immediately know. I was like, if there was ever any doubt, when it did that, you know for a fact, not only could no human do that, but there's nothing on the face of this planet that can do that. And, you know, I mean, like, it's indescribable. The lung capacity, the low bass, it felt like we already terrified, but I just felt like it literally went through. Like, I felt like I lost all strength. You know, like a dead man.
Must have been very, very frightening to hear that.
The power, the force, the low frequency, it seemed to reverberate forever down through them hollers. I mean, I don't know how long it lasted, but it went on. And like I said, there's nothing with that lung capacity, let alone that sound. And it's the human twang to it is really unnerving too. But it was just a long, just kept going like that. And we're like, so, you know, that was like the cherry on top. We're like, that was not a human. No.
And then you heard that after you turned to run, correct?
Yes. And looking back over the years, I really believe we startled it, you know, scared it too.
Sure.
For 15 minutes, it was, you know, just regular nature, and we're frozen our tracks.
Yeah. But, and you said it was sitting there eating leaves off the branch, and then you could hear the leaves. And then, you mentioned it was standing, stretching, craning its neck. Is there any more details about that? You did a really nice job in the artwork, and
thanks.
You're describing it was really well. But is there anything else you can describe about it, like the width of its shoulders? You mentioned the color in the artwork. It was this beautiful reddish brown.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. It looks really beautiful, you know. And I had seen the Patty film and stuff growing up, and then a couple of years prior, my brother got chased out by a 9 or 10 foot great one. I just always thought they were black, and you know, again, if it was just like a myth, it would be the same creature, but it's not. There's different colors and different sizes depending on where you are in the country. Just like here down south in Florida, they're tiny. You go up north in Maine and Canada, they're freaking huge. But it didn't look like that. You know, so I was, you know, I always thought Bigfoot was Patty, huge, thick, massive, black, and I've always heard them. You know, I'm part Native American, Ojibwa. You always hear of the whistling woman of the woods and stuff. So I had no idea that they roared and they were beautiful reddish brown. But people said, well, how did it have big feet? Well, I couldn't see because it wasn't sitting; it was squatting, which bears can't squat. It had its right arm. You know, you're looking up at it. Had its right arm between its legs, like you see sometimes like apes do or something, but it was squatting and butt wasn't touching the ground, and it would come up a couple feet like it was fixing to stand up, periodically. It'd eat a little bit, then it was like, first I was terrified when I seen the crown and the monkey face. After about the third time it was eating leaves, I focused on it. I'm like, okay, then my blood ran cold because I knew that could not be a human. And then the next most fearful thing was when it would stop eating and like it would catch a little scent of us rising up the mountain or something, or sensed us or smelt us or whatever, heard us, and it would stop eating, and you could see it leaning its body left and right, trying, and it would stand up a couple feet up, but not all the way, but a little bit. Like it was like a human would, trying to, that was the weird part. It was like a human trying to look down through the trees, like something's down there, but I can't find it. And I was froze, like I wouldn't even look. I would look down and avert my eyes because, hunting, the pupils of your eyes give you away every time. You could see a bunny eye in a thicket full of snow and briars. So I actually would avert my eyes and like holding my breath.
That's smart.
But it looked, I couldn't tell, maybe 7. I couldn't tell. There was nothing to really gauge it by and being under it like that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a guesstimate.
But a guesstimate. I would say probably 7 foot or something. Looked like a good size human, but it wasn't thick and bulky like the Patty. It was more real athletic looking. You could see the muscle definition. It looked more trim.
Yeah.
And I can remember vividly seeing like the arm muscles and stuff. It had the hair, see that definition, and the traps were huge, shoulders.
Yeah.
But it wasn't thick. It looked like really buff, I guess. Really.
Wow.
I'm trying to compare someone to it, but like a nice cut up.
Yeah, bodybuilder or something.
Size. Yeah, not necessarily like a Schwarzenegger, but like thinking like Ultimate Warrior or something, but more, and really long arms.
Wow.
It's
You
clearly
mentioned the cranium on the forehead?
Yes. Like I said, looking straight at it from below, I couldn't really tell, you know what I mean? When it's facing you.
Oh, yeah.
But when it turned, and I was focusing on it, it turned about the third or fourth time to grab the leaves off that bush. I saw a pronounced sagittal crest, like a silverback gorilla, and then a monkey type face. And I knew, because I took state in biology and grew up hunting and trapping, and I loved animals and I loved art, so I could draw them, and I knew automatically that's not a bear and it's not a human. What is it?
Yeah.
People always say, like, why don't you take a picture? Yeah, you always got these haters. And I'm like, you don't, it's like asking someone like that surviving like a serial killer, axe murderer, hey, why didn't you get a picture of him while he's attacking you? Or what? You just don't
Exactly.
You're so terrified, your mind is blown because you go, that's not supposed to exist. It's a monster, a myth, but I'm looking right at it. It's eating, it's physical. So that's, people don't get that the overwhelming fear that I've never felt in my life.
Wow. And that was 1984, so I can't imagine you had a camera with you.
No, I didn't have a camera anyway.
Yeah, you didn't even have a camera anyway, so.
No.
Yeah.
And people say, it's a bobcat. Oh, it's this. It's a wild man. It's a guy in a monkey suit. I'm like, that guy could be in a monkey suit for 100 years, and then no one would ever find him.
No, exactly. That was very remote because you took that left turn and it dead-ended, and then you guys decided to go straight up anyways, just right over through the mountain like that, over the mountain. But,
Yeah, how every mountain's got a ridge, a game trail on top.
Yeah.
I knew once I hit the peak of it, then it'd be easy. Okay, there's the trail I was looking for, that game trail. But, and it was like 90, 95 degrees. It was sweltering hot, so the guy couldn't have lasted a half hour in that suit.
No.
And it wasn't, even like I said, even if he was in a suit, no human being can come close to imitating the sound and the ferocity of that freaking roar.
Yeah. And I've never seen a suit like that, even in this day and age. I've seen some lousy ones, like in the Halloween store and stuff.
And you could pick them out, even them fake videos. You can pick them out a mile away.
Yeah, they got these baggy pants. You can look like pajamas or something.
Right. You see it wrinkling, and it always looks real furry, too. It's like, it wasn't furry, it was hair. Really? And it always looks so groomed. I'm like, deer don't ever have a bunch of birds. And, you might find a couple, but, deer, rabbit, coyotes, wolves, every other primate, they groom each other. Why would a Bigfoot be any different? But it looked beautiful. The sun was mottled coming down through the leaves, and when it looked through the bush, I could see the back of its head and stuff and the shoulders, and it looked just beautiful there. Yeah.
Did you see the nose? What did the nose look like?
I couldn't. I'd be lying to say, like, if I really definitive. It just looked like from kind of like my drawing there. It came out in a kind of a Planet of the Apes shape that I knew immediately recognized as not human. Because humans got the nose and then it goes in. You got the top lip and it goes in. It wasn't like that. It was more the new Planet of the Apes kind of look to the mouth face portion.
Yeah. So with this sighting, and you said you it was 7 years before you even went back in the forest, and also after you came flying down the mountain with your sister and you went in the house, your body reacted and you started crying or grieving or whatever because of the I'm assuming being so overloaded with emotion and fear and shock and everything else. Are there any longer-term effects that you've had?
Just like I said, mostly just I did not, because I knew they existed then. It really just like blew my whole world, because again, I was 9 years old, and up here in Northeast Ohio, we'd walk for miles. I have a 22 on my hip. We'd walk for miles in 2-3 foot snow, middle of the night, checking our trap lines, muskrat, coon, and things, and then hop on the bus. Cool, So I've heard bobcats shriek and stuff. So I never had a fear of the woods. But after that, that was traumatizing, and I hated that the most, because we would go out, me and my brothers, and go out for 2-3 days on a long weekend in the wintertime without a tent or anything, kind of make a little lean-to. We loved all that, set snares and build a little fire, But it took 7 years later, and I finally went back with a 44 mag, which I now know is ridiculous, but I just had to get over that fear,
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Did you have any dreams or nightmares after this happened? Like immediately?
Yeah, immediately after I did. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Like I said, we were like literally in physical shock. We were both white as ghosts, they said, and my sister started throwing up, and I started crying, like, once you made it home safe, that adrenaline dump and the emotions. She was way down below me, man. I seen her little blonde head, bouncing over to, chest high logs that fell across that old creek bed in a washout. And I'm like knowing what's coming up. I'm watching her, and I hate to say it, but I'll be honest, I was like begging her, please wait up. Like, don't leave me, I was like, pray, please pray. Yeah. I wanted to man up and say, go on without me, but I didn't want to die alone.
And then
honestly.
After you heard the yell, you didn't hear any like movement, like it coming down the mountain after you.
No, sir. We both were too afraid to look back, but once we got down in that washout, it was a real steep ravine going down in a holler, just ankle busting like softball and volleyball sized rocks, boulders, with trees, here and there. I just knew, like in my mind, my fear, I just knew it was going to run along that little sharp ridge where we were in the creek bed and then cut us off the pass, But no, we were making so much noise in the heart, in your ears, in your throat. We didn't hear anything but our own, our own hearts and stuff. But we were making a lot of noise.
You never knew, though, so you're like, let's just get out of here completely and not wait to see if he's going to follow us or show up somewhere else. So now I'd like to think, like, if I can redo it now, I would say, I would stay there, watch him some more. Obviously, if I had a camera, and I would try to interact a little bit, give him a little whoop or something to kind of mimic, I think I would do that more so. But back then, I didn't know anything about him. It was a monster, Sure. And then once
first time anyone sees it, that was done.
But that confirms, like, your body needs, we got to go, and your body's telling you to get out.
I was so I never in my life exactly, and I've heard other people say on other shows and things like fight or flight, and then they were just like froze. I grew up tough kid, always no problem fight stuff and some hard times, and I never had that feeling. As old Marine, usually run to the sound of the commotion and the danger, but I never had that feeling where I was frozen in my tracks and I didn't want to run and I didn't want to stay. Like, I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to blink and wake up and be home, I didn't want it to know we were there. I didn't want to make a sound and let it know. Right now, it wasn't sure we were there. But
And
that kind of a feeling.
I'm surprised that it didn't know you were there, because I'm assuming you made some pretty good noise coming up before you saw it.
Yeah, because we're grabbing
breaking
saplings above us, slipping on
pulling
leaves.
and making, probably talking.
Yeah, we're talking, stopping every, 15 minutes, try to catch your breath on them angles where you can get a flat spot or get up behind a tree and, gasping, catch your breath. Okay, almost there. I can see the sky up behind the tops of the tree, so I knew we're almost to the top, The only thing I can think of is it just came out of the cave that was behind it. It was like a big wall of rocks, like ledges and things. If it just had come out after we stopped to take our break, and we just looked up and noticed, like something like that, if it was making noise.
Yeah, there you go. That kind of makes sense. Yeah. We don't know.
I wondered, how did we get so close? Because most ones I've ever heard before, it was like they saw it, or the Bigfoot saw them first, and then it ran across the road, or it peeked on a tree and it turned around. We were watching it for 15 minutes, like just doing nothing but staring at it, watching it in its natural, habitat. So the only thing I can think of is it just came along.
They usually, from most of the encounters I've heard, find you before you find them. So pretty incredible. Also, you mentioned you were in a car crash about a little over a year ago. How are you doing with that?
I still have a lot of pain every day. Had a drunk driver hit me. I was coming home from work a couple of weeks before Christmas in 2022 from Cleveland, coming home from work.
Yeah.
Got to go Christmas shopping a few weeks early. Us men, we usually wait till Christmas Eve. And I thought, well, got this, painting contract. I got this job done. I got 3 weeks off till Christmas. It's sweet. And then I never made it home. He swerved over. I went off the road, and he still came off and hit me head on. But,
my God.
So, yeah, that means on the plus side, I got to find your channel.
Uh-huh.
All the downtime and surgeries and just pretty much homebound.
Yeah.